Welcome to the Blount County Public Library and our Focus on Seniors program, A Conversation on Caregiving, which is co-sponsored by the library and the Blount County Office on Aging. I am Reference Librarian Melinda Rust, and I'm delighted that you're joining us today for this online community service video. This is a first for us. As many of you know, the programs in our Focus on Senior series usually take place within the library building. However, as we were discussing plans for a program on caregiving, it occurred to us that for many caregivers, it's really difficult to leave their loved ones at home to attend an outside event. So we decided to bring the event to you. We hope it will be helpful, and we really welcome your feedback. If this format is convenient and helpful for you, please let us know. At the end of the video, we will provide contact information so that you can share your insights and suggestions and opinions with us. We welcome those. Our presenters today are two individuals who have many years of experience in helping seniors and others with concerns related to caregiving. Joanie Shaver is the director of the Blount County Office on Aging, and she's also our community partner in planning programs in our Focus on Seniors series. Edward Harper is licensed clinical social worker, senior services at Blount Memorial Hospital and at Morning View Assisted Living. I would like to thank them both for sharing their knowledge and their insights with us today in this conversation on caregiving. Thank you.
I'm Joanie Shaver, and I'm the director of the Blount County Office on Aging, and I've been in that position since 2011. And one of the concerns that I've had in my position is supporting the caregivers who are out there and very plentiful in Blount County and across Tennessee and across the world. And so we are interested in providing a new approach to see if we can reach caregivers who are at home giving care, rather than asking them to try and find someone to replace them so they could come to the library and hear us talk. So this is our attempt at providing an option for caregivers and providing information that we hope will be helpful. And I wanted to introduce Edward Harper, who's with Blount Memorial Hospital Senior Services.
Thank you, Joanie. Yes, I'm Edward Harper with Blount Memorial Hospital Senior Services and with Morning View Assisted Living. And we're so glad that you're here joining us for this podcast on caregiving. And I think what we're titling it today is Conversations about Caregiving or Caregiving. And with senior services through the hospital, it's a very unique position. Very proud of Blount Memorial for having sponsored this program for over 20 years, since 2000. And this program basically exists to assist any adult caring for another adult nationwide at no charge. And I usually have to say that twice because folks go, "What did you just say?" Yes, the Senior Services program at Blount Memorial Hospital, it is in existence to assist any adult caring for another adult nationwide at no charge. It's a way that we reach out to our community because we know that mom and dad doesn't always live in Blount County and caregivers don't always live in Blount County, and folks don't have to be from this county or even this region to call. And again, with this podcast, we're reaching out to as wide an audience as we can because of the issues that are particular to caregiving in the beginning, actually the third decade of the millennium. So with Blount Memorial Hospital, not to seem like it's doing a commercial for them, but they have a lot of senior programs, from medical fitness to assisted living to rehab, and they're a very much a community hospital that reaches out and wants to be part of our community and our older adults. Working with the Office on Aging and Joanie Shaver, we have helped and sponsored her efforts in a senior directory. which is another edition is coming out. Is this the 10th edition that will be?
I have no idea.
I think it's around the 10th. Is that you all are phenomenal. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that if you're in the Blount County area and you need a senior directory of services in the Blount County and a bit expansive area, that Joanie Shaver at the Office on Aging is an excellent resource for that. So that's a little bit of what I do. I'm available to the community at no charge. Folks can just call me through the hospital and reach me that way.
And what we wanted to talk about a little bit next was give some perspectives on caregiving. In Tennessee alone, we have 1.6 million people who are caring for family members, neighbors, loved ones, friends, providing over 1 million hours yearly of unpaid care. And it is something to remember to caregivers is that you are not alone, that there are many people that are doing the same job you are doing. And we want to put the word out that we are here to support you. And there are many resources that are available that if you dig a little deeper, you can come up with a plan. One of the key features of caregiving is being able to get a break every now and then. Hiring honest, qualified caregivers is expensive, and sometimes it's risky for families. And it's especially risky if they do not live nearby, if they don't live in the area at all and cannot be monitoring what's going on. Home services most often are not covered by Medicare, and the cost can range from $11 to $22 per hour. We fought really hard to get an adult day program in Blount County. There was one here for about 3 years, and it has closed. Caregivers need to remember that you can't work 24/7 every day of the year for years on end without taking care of yourself. It's really key to plan some time where you can take care of yourself. One of the other points that I run into a lot is those in need of the care often resist the notion of help. They don't want somebody into their home. They don't want somebody cleaning their house or making their meals. And that is a very big obstacle for some families. Even when they've identified the need for help, the resistance of the loved one makes it very challenging. Family members who live long distances away can be out of touch. A lot of times parents and siblings can put on a really good front for a 3-day visit, especially dementia patients, people with beginning cognitive impairments, and the loved one goes back home thinking mom or their brother is fine, when in actuality there's some issues that are developing that they may not be aware of. So that's one of the things that is challenging.
What I want to speak to in the next few minutes are impacts of caregiving. And I want to go back to one of the things that Joanie had highlighted, and that is that caregivers go to great lengths to give care. And it's incremental. Is you do a little, you do a little more, you do a little more, you do a little more, and pretty soon people become overburdened. There's a couple of words that we don't really want to say in our family. We don't want to say that somebody becomes burdened. However, the process can become burdensome. And there's sort of a saying out there is that you don't need to set yourself on fire to warm somebody else. Is that we truly give more out of ourselves, and we ask more out of relationships and systems and families than actually those systems and families and relationships can give over time. So one of the greatest impacts is that nothing happens alone in caregiving. There's usually one, two, or very few folks in a family that can actually give care to another person. And as that care becomes more and more daily, it goes from perhaps just some caregiving, helping straighten up, change light bulbs, to pay the bills, and it becomes more executive. It starts out with assisting folks with executive types of needs, and as Joanie said, that's paying the bills, making sure things are on time or in date, food is actually processed, you're not buying the same things over and over, which happens because as folks lose executive skills, and right now we're talking about more of the caregiving to the person that is losing cognitive abilities. They tend to operate less from their neocortex and frontal lobe, and those are terms that we need to know. We're not going to do in-depth anatomy, but those, the neocortex, frontal lobe, and temporal lobe are making decisions based on concepts and abstracts. So as I know someone and the relationship, I will take over some of those functions, and that will leave them with instrumental skills, those skills that get us through the day, those things that are usual and customary. So I can look like I can still live alone. And when I'm not doing that much help, I'm just helping her with the checkbook or him with the bills or getting the car service. But what we begin to do is that incremental care. And that takes time. It takes energy. And just as it is not capable, we are not capable of being at two places at one time, even with FaceTime and all the electronic technologies we've got, we still cannot be physically two places at one time. We cannot be emotionally two places at one time. As folks begin giving care and it becomes more of an emotional issue, a drain, we keep your stiff upper lip, and we do the things that need to be done. However, if we're engaged in relationships, datehood, matehoods, marriages, those partners begin to feel the lack of attention, and we can't give that intimacy, that caring and sharing with our partners as well as we did when we did not have caregiving facilities or duties. So that's just laying that out one time. You cannot be two places at once, even though we will try. Joanie also spoke to the fact that as individuals, especially with neurodegeneration, it's losing nerve cells, losing thought, losing memory, losing the ability to conceptualize, they lose that. We still speak to them as if they are cogent, if they're coherent to this, but there is a term that is called akinesia, and that is that you don't know what you don't know. So as I lose ability, I don't know that I've lost ability. Joanie would see it, but if she would speak to me, I said, no, I can do that. No, what are you doing? I'll take care of that. And because you're going to give me deference as a family member, you'll go, well, he can still do this, which looks like on the instrumental part of the functioning that they're doing well. Now that just sets up all kinds of dynamics. I was a family therapist for many years back in the 80s, and I guess I still am doing that, although I'm not doing the therapy end of it, but it's hard not to recognize dynamics. That Joanie is not going to try to get in my business for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want her there, and two, she doesn't want to be there. The other thing is that there may be in a history where you don't tell me I'm wrong, that I'm the person that's in charge. And then there's this guilt factor, is that I don't want to put somebody somewhere. I don't want to give up. I don't want to be seen as the person. So these are impacts that I'm going to lay out. I could go on and about the financial impact. I could continue about the social impact and about the impacts on the families of it. It starts out and it hits every aspect of our humanness. It hits our psychology, it hits our spiritual ends, it hits our emotional, our mood, and it hits our physical ends. When folks are at the point, if they've got a neuromuscular disorder, they can't move, then we become their devices of movement. Could not count how many folks and caregivers that I've had in front of me that have complaints of upper shoulder girdle, lower back, and lower strain, and abdominal strain. These stressors on the musculoskeletal group can result into injuries that are not really treatable anymore. They're just sustained injuries, and they will be there.
Chronic, yeah.
Chronic.
We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges besides what Edward just talked about. Many of the calls that I get are from family members. They are family members that are the sole caregiver, even though they have 4 siblings that live in Blount County. And they are stressed to the max. They don't know how to ask for help. They have asked for help, but haven't received much help. And one of the things I tell these family members is to come up with a list of things that anyone could help you with. So when somebody says, just call, just call. If you need something, just call. Oh, I don't have to call. Could you go pick up the groceries on Tuesday? Could you call my mother on Wednesday mornings at 8 o'clock, a reminder to take her meds? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of different ways to engage family members, and it's not all being there in person. There's a lot of help that can be offered that people don't think of. And even the people who live out of town, I think it's a mistake to not engage those that live out of the area in the care of a loved one. You're cheating them out of the opportunity to provide some contact with either their mother, their father, their sister, their brother. And it takes planning. I don't think any of us are really good at planning ahead. I get a number of other calls from people who have a mother that's being released from rehabilitation, from transitional care in a week, and they have never thought of the possibility that mom can't live alone anymore. And they have no plan. They've never talked about it with mom. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of families I've encouraged to sit down with mom or dad or your sister, or your brother, or your neighbor, or whoever you can influence, and do it before there's a crisis. Don't do it when the hip is already broken.
Yeah, that's I reflect on the same types of conversations with folks, Joanie, and I just personally, I do think we need to have some plans, but I have a little adage just in the back of my head: I'll make plans and God laughs. Yes, the thing is that. So when we're engaging a family in a conversation about making plans, there's some scripted kind of things and documents either at the library here or online about how to go through with planning. There's a lot of financial groups that have a how-to and what kind of documents you need. Again, sort of leaning back to where we were talking about the impacts of caregiving, is that you cannot always impact them to have an impact on the family member that you want and the way that you want it. I work many times with folks, and I'm using hand signs here, is that they know that there is a crisis coming. And it's certainly advantageous if we can plan and avert the crisis, or at the point of crisis we have. most of the time, so you can feel okay about this, caregivers out there, is that most folks don't make it here and they don't make it here. They're making it here. That's just sort of how it goes after the point of crisis. That's when it's coming together. There is a point in which, yes, we're including that person who is losing capacity in the decision making process. And it's a pretty big and, there's a caveat, is that at some point that person can no longer make executive decisions about their own care. The thing about including other folks, and I'll go on to talk about powers of attorney a little bit later. However, if you are the person who is the primary caregiver, it's not up to you to tell everybody else across the United States how things are going on a daily basis. That is something that you offer, but you don't have to put yourself into being chief communicator. People should be calling you about things.
Well, and that's where a plan comes in, because if there's somebody in the family who likes to write and wants to do email to the family members, that would be a great role for someone who doesn't have the time or the skill to do something on a daily basis. There are a lot of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak.
Well, you got a couple more points I'm looking that are very pertinent in terms of planning for future needs, about looking what's financially affordable, what's close, who,
Right.
what kind of movement, translocation.
And what legal options are available so that people can apply and get approved for help with long-term care.
Yeah, you might want to speak to that, and I'll fill in a few blanks, okay?
Sure.
About the affordability.
Yeah, affordable care for long-term stays anywhere, once Medicare is exhausted, is very expensive. Many people out there think that Medicare pays for long-term care, and Medicare does not pay for long-term care. And the long-term care options have to be considered before the long-term care is needed. And that's what I'm always pushing people. Look at the options out there for your loved one. It may not be to live alone in the house that they've lived in for 100 years, or it may be fine. But I think families need to put everything on the table. Stay here, go here, and not in a vacuum, but talking to the person who is going to have the impact of the decision.
While I don't disagree with that, my practice tells me that although that would be the most perfect world, it doesn't happen that way many times. And when we're looking at how to finance things, if a person has a certifiable, viable, long-term care insurance policy, it's extremely advantageous for that caregiver to have access to that, have it enhanced, and have read it before.
And know it's there.
Know it's there, and know where it is, and know what the limits of it are. Two reasons. One is that when you go on claim, somebody, if I have the long-term care policy in my name, and I'm not able to go on claim, I will need that service, could be using that service, and I'll never, ever do anything except pay a premium, maybe. With the premiums, it is now in Tennessee, I don't know if it's sure it's a law or it's just basically been a good idea that many long-term cares are doing, is that they will look to a secondary representative. So if they don't get a payment made by me, then they would contact Joanie and say, well, payment has been made, so that they don't lose that long-term care contract that they have for years. Now, long-term care means either in-home, non-medical care, or it means assisted living care in a facility, or an assisted memory care, or when we say long-term care, we generally are talking about skilled nursing services, but those other three are still part of the long-term care
And they're
packaging.
very excellent options.
And however in this, those first three are mainly paid by private out-of-pocket money. It's a fee-for-service. If you have a long-term care contract or a insurance, they will pay for that to some extent of the contract of the policy. And then when we get to long-term care skilled nursing, that is out of pocket or by long-term care insurance. And then it's when you reach poverty level, you're reaching that slightly over $2,000 to your name. I know that's not the accurate number, but it's the number I use.
Yeah.
And you have to reach your poverty level and also have to be medically eligible before you can use skilled nursing services beyond rehabilitation. This is the most confusing part, even though it's probably very simple to us because we talk this every day, is that when we're talking about rehabilitation, Medicare pays for certain rehab days for that person who's improving. I'm not going to say the total number of days because in individual cases and individual plans, you'll get an upfront day of 5 days, or you might get 7, or you might get 20, or you might get 60. So you've got that Medicare policy plan, whichever one you have signed up on. And that pays for rehab. It does not pay for skilled nursing longer beyond rehab. And you have something to say.
Well, what I was going to say is once the caregiving role gets a little more advanced, then the caregiver is the one who needs to keep track of the Medicare policies, the Part D Medicare drug plans, to make sure that the needs that their loved one has are covered by the plan that they're enrolled in. So that's another caregiver role that is very complicated.
Well, let's just say that about that, because it truly is a complicated. When folks that are having difficulty making decisions, executive decisions, are having to make every year a Medicare decision, it's time for family members or whoever's the power of attorney to come in. And with Medicare, it's one of those, if you're a power of attorney, you're going to have to fax it into whatever facility or whatever business they're working with. So I guess we could kind of get into the power of attorney into this. Power of attorneys are authorized statements by an individual that I want someone else to act on my behalf. They are not powers over somebody. They're not dictatorial, but they are authorizations. I would ask Joanie, would you please take care of my decision making in the way that I either outline in paper or you know me to have made decisions for me. I would ask you to accept that authorization, and if you said yes, it would document that, and you would be as my authorized agent or my power of attorney. There's two powers of attorney. One is finance, the other is medical. So I would ask you to do that, or I might ask somebody else to be my medical power of attorney, you be my financial, or you may be in concert with someone else to do that.
Right.
Hopefully it's an or, not an and, because that means you both have to show up at the same place, have the same mind, and sign in front of someone else. If it is then Joanie, then Ruth, then David, as a step down, well, you would have to designate that Ruth, in fact, had permission from you as a primary power of attorney to make that decision. And if the third one down the line, then you would have to designate that also, and the other person. So it gets complicated. So if there's some trust in the family, I'm not making a one of these advisory statements. It is a statement for consideration. Is that if you've got folks, you make them or. I am not an attorney. Don't pretend to be one. Don't play one on television or radio. But my experience says that when you've got folks that are cooperating in a family and you can make it an or, that works, because then Joanie or Ruth could be in that same position of making decisions.
Right.
Now you hear the word durable. Durable is an 18th century term. It's applied mostly to finances because we didn't have medical powers of attorney until probably, I don't know, recent 50 years or something like that. But what that means, durable, is it withstands my mental incompetency or my mental impairment, put it that way. I don't like the word incompetency. But say Joanie traded horses for me in the 1800s, and she traded in North Carolina. So every year you trade horses for me. And then one year I get kicked in the head by a horse, and I ain't right. I have just lost my capacity. Well, at that point in the 1800s, that power of attorney, that authorization ceased because I was no longer able in the day to have capacity to know that Joanie was doing my bidding. So that's the word durable came out to transcend me having loss of ability.
Right.
So Joanie would, under a durable power of attorney for finances, be trading horses on my behalf until she decided, well, we don't really need to be trading horses, or somebody else, it came up and you made that business decision for me.
Right.
So almost every attorney that I've ever heard speak on this and that talks with me is that power of attorney is a misrepresenting term. You don't have power over somebody. You have been authorized by that person in their soundest of mind to make decisions for them when they are no longer capable. And that capacity could be the flu, or it could be kicked in the head by a horse, or it could be a neurodegenerative disease, or whatever. It could be out of state.
Right.
So that's a little bit longer, but the number one thing here is that's not an old person document.
No.
If you're 18, you really need to have a power of attorney which authorizes someone to speak on your medical behalf, and if you've got any finances that might be coming to you, to speak on your financial behalf, but especially have a power of attorney for medical authorization. Some cases they call it authorized healthcare agents. So the key word is authorization, and my stump is to get it at 18, so that if I have children at 18 and I want to be able to speak for them in a medical facility, then I have that legal authorization. It is their constitutional right to have privacy and make their own decisions at 18. And you can't buy cigarettes till you're 21, but you can make your own decisions at 18.
Well, and the other thing to remember is that powers of attorney are revocable.
Yes.
So it's not like you name someone at 18 and then you're stuck with that person for the rest of your life. You can revoke that power of attorney.
In fact, you should review them because people spousally, is that a word? Spouses? I don't know, I made it up. I know other people make up words. So in the state of Tennessee, as I understand it, being a spouse does not make you power of attorney for each other. You have to authorize that. But however, if we went through and this spouse and this spouse, Ruth and Edward, then if Edward is now no longer competent, is what I'm impaired, really is he a competent authorized agent? So that's the reason you have to look and make tough decisions. Well, I really want him to, but he doesn't have the wherewithal to make it. And you can change these at any time. And also, you can revoke it if I had asked you, and you say, well, I really don't have time.
I'll do it for a while, but it's taking up too much time.
So you can actually revoke and rescind. I can't be power of attorney. So these documents are very fluid.
And very important.
Exactly.
Very important.
If you don't have power of attorney, you will hit a wall in which you cannot make a decision for anyone else. And I don't know if it's the worst case scenario because the state doesn't want to do this. At some point, if there's not somebody that can step up and be appointed by a court, and you don't want to spend all the money to go for conservatorship, because that's a whole another thing you talk to an attorney about, conservatorships. But powers of attorney work well. But if you don't have them, then at some point somebody's going to be appointed that, and it could be a state-appointed guardian ad litem. Now, I'm not saying that the state just jumps in and do it because they don't want to do it. It's only kind of a last call.
Last resort.
Yes.
And that's the important thing about the legal documents is they have to be in place while the person has cognitive abilities. So that's the critical factor. If somebody is in the late stages of dementia, it's too late to get those documents.
Or someone's comatose.
Right.
You know,
Better to plan ahead and have them in place.
right, it's that kind of thing. We're sort of getting down to, we were talking about health and fatigue, and caregivers will wear out. I mean, that's just, you cannot do it forever. It will wear you out. And part of a presentation that I used over several different states is the emotional complexities of giving care. And the bottom line is that caregivers wear out. They don't give up, and they don't give in, but they give out.
Yeah.
You got some, we want to talk about support groups?
Yeah.
Okay. There are support groups that are through different organizations, the Parkinson's organization, the Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Tennessee, and there's a caregiver. If you go online, you'll just find a plethora of caregiving online groups. And also in this town, if you're in Blount County, I run a caregiver support group on the first and third Tuesdays of every month at our local Vienna coffee house. And we have a caregiver cafe, which is on the fourth, I think it's the second and
I don't know.
fourth Thursdays. And there's several caregiver cafes out there. So if you look for support groups, look for them that support the caregiver. Okay. Well, you know, we just talked about support groups, and I'm not sure folks really know when they need support. Again, you know, caregiving comes up and it's sort of insidious. It kind of happens, and you start
An
giving
inch
care.
at a time.
Inch at a time, and you don't know exactly when you've reached that thing. So I know that you have about 10 signs of what to look for, and these are all on gradients. But,
Right. Right.
if you don't mind, Joanie, going over your 10 signs of trouble.
So if you're visiting your loved one, a sister, a mother or father, coming from out of town, that's really the most obvious, is when a child or a friend comes into town 3 or 4 times a year, and the people who see the elderly person daily don't notice the issues as much as somebody who comes in at Mother's Day. One of the 10 signs of trouble would be a change in the appearance or condition of the home. Is it getting more and more unclean, cluttered, in disrepair? Is there no one that's available to help make the home more livable for this elderly person? I already mentioned clutter. Clutter is a big sign, and it's also a huge safety issue for older people. They sometimes have more things than they can fit in the house. If your loved one that you're visiting all of a sudden hasn't appeared to have taken a bath or a shower in 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 3 months, that would be a real sign of trouble. When the clothes are not clean, the person is not clean. That is a major telltale sign. One of the first indicators of dementia is people lose the ability to remember to pay the bills, remember to open the mail, remember to get the mail out of the mailbox. So if someone is visiting from out of town and there's a stack of unopened mail, that's a telltale sign that things are heading downhill. If a mother or a sister always ate really good food, had lettuce and tomatoes and chicken and fish, and all of a sudden all that's in their house is Fritos and soda and sweets, that would be another tip-off. If there's any spoiled food, and that's a big concern of mine, when people start losing their cognitive ability, they don't understand that you can't take the food and leave it out on the counter. And I'm afraid that when they're hungry, they'll take something off the counter and put it in the microwave, and they're eating something that is really not edible. Any bugs or rodents in the house, in the garage, on the porch, on the walls, that's another telltale sign of things are going bad. And this is something that I have talked about in the past, is if you're visiting your mother on Christmas and you say, okay, I'll be flying in on the 23rd and I'll be at your house by 6 o'clock, and you say that to that person a month in advance, that person, your loved one, may not be home, may not even know that you're coming, because unless you keep constant contact with someone, they get confused. And I would hate to see somebody fly in from Las Vegas and their mother is not home. So it's wise to stay in touch. If you get to the house and there's empty medicine bottles, that's another telltale sign. Or there's full medicine bottles. They're not filling their medications or they're not taking them. Those are really important reasons to pay attention. And the final one is just the spills on the floor, the fact that mom tripped and fell. She's got a bruise on her head. If the place isn't clean and if mom isn't safe in it, those are really big signs of trouble. So those are just some ideas to pay attention when you visit someone out of town. If you're going to visit, to keep in mind. They're signs of trouble.
So, Joanie, thank you so much for those signs of trouble. And it is, as we've spoken several times, that this happens incrementally, and we don't know exactly when it happens.
Yeah.
And when it does reach that point of beyond just awareness, and we admit it, if we got beyond the yes buts, and we're into the I'm accepting this is happening, and then we have to go, so what do I do now? And as you are here and I'm here, we're representing all the folks in all the counties that townships that are providing care, and it's as close as your internet. However, if you would like to care, like for us to assist you with the so what do we do now, is that we'll be providing that information on the screen. Joanie, through the Office on Aging, can be reached at an email, which we'll provide, and myself with Blount Memorial Senior Services will give you a phone number that you can call and leave a message, and I would be very happy to assist as much as I can. So on behalf of the caregivers here, we want to thank Blount, we want to thank, Blount, I started to say Blount Memorial, I've got that on my tip. We want to say Blount County Library for making this podcast webinar available. This information, thank you for taking that, and thank the Office on Aging and Joanie for all that you do every day.
And same to you.
Thank you. Take care.